A 3-ton giant with massive tusks and immense physical strength that transforms from a seemingly placid animal into the top apex predator of the swamp. Welcome back to Too Long Didn't Watch. Today we will speed run the 2026 British survival horror film Hungry. The protagonist, Sistine, has hit rock bottom. Her mother recently passed away from a severe illness, and while she is on a vacation to clear her mind, her boss calls and fires her. Sistine's naturally optimistic friend Hannah tries to cheer her up, saying that now she can focus completely on enjoying the rest of their trip without worrying about work. Without asking further, Hannah books a spot on the local town's most thrilling tourist activity, a guided alligator swamp tour. The next morning, hungover and wearing sunglasses, Sistine and Hannah arrive at the gathering point for the alligator tour. The tour members include tour guide Rodrigo, an experienced military veteran. The family, a retired firefighter named Tim, traveling with his nurse daughter, Sally, and his grandson, Mike, as well as a solo traveler, Dion, an arrogant career businesswoman. Everyone's goal is simple. They want to deep dive into the marshland to see the region's massive alligators. Before boarding the boat, the tourists visit the private showroom of Walker, the tour agency owner. Walker is a veteran hunter whose walls are decorated with hunting trophies from his youth. The centerpiece is a giant, terrifying animal skull. Walker proudly announces it is a massive hippo he hunted in Africa. Seeing the tourists look unimpressed, Walker strictly warns them. Hippos are not peaceful herbivores. They are extremely territorial, sit at the top of the combat hierarchy, and will viciously destroy lions or alligators to protect their offspring. The tourist dismiss his warning as typical tall tales from an old hunter. The group boards Rodrigo's tour boat. Rodrigo emphasizes safety rules. Even though alligators don't usually attack unprovoked, everyone must keep their hands and feet inside the boat at all times. As a special perk, Rodrigo offers to take them to see the true king of the swamp, a 12-foot-long giant alligator nicknamed King Gator. The boat glides deep into the wild marshland. At first, the scenery is beautiful, with raccoons appearing along the banks, but as they go deeper, the surroundings become dark and eerie. Rodrigo checks a tracking device indicating King Gator is nearby. To lure him out, he throws marshmallows into the water, which alligators mistake for floating food/eggs. When that yields no reaction, Rodrigo switches to raw meat. Time passes, but the water remains unnaturally still. Young Mike pulls a prank, scaring the other tourists by reaching near the water, causing everyone to jump. As Rodrigo steers toward a different spot, they make a gruesome discovery on the shore: the half-eaten carcass of King Gator surrounded by torn flesh. Shocked that an apex predator could be butchered this way, Rodrigo senses immediate danger and turns the boat around to head back. Before the boat can clear the area, something heavy strikes the hull from underwater, violently rocking the vessel until it capsizes. Everyone is thrown into the murky water. The tourists scramble onto the overturned hull, but realize a creature is hunting beneath them. The water around Rodrigo turns red with blood. The group panics and hauls him onto the hull just as the boat drifts and lodges into a thick cluster of trees. Sally, the nurse, examines Rodrigo and discovers a deep puncture wound on his shoulder from massive animal teeth that is bleeding heavily. Without medical equipment, the only way to stop the hemorrhage is by cauterization. Tim spots a floating waterproof emergency box in the water containing heat signals/flares. Sistine climbs out onto tree trunks, stretches out, and retrieves the box. Tim lights a flare, and Sally uses a blade heated red hot by the flame to press against Rodrigo's wound, successfully sealing the bleeding despite his intense agony. Once conscious, Rodrigo recalls the attack. Giant teeth clamped onto his shoulder, and only his frantic fighting prevented him from being dragged under. Sally notes that teeth marks this wide require an animal with 10-inch tusks. Rodrigo notes he has worked in this marsh for years and has never heard of any giant predator living here, yet whatever it is was strong enough to kill King Gator. With no phone signal in the swamp, their only hope is the automated GPS transponder built into the boat. However, back at the agency, Walker will only realize they are missing if they fail to return by closing time at 7 p.m. The tourists realize they are stuck in this dangerous water for at least 5 hours. Worse, all their supplies sank. Young Mike and his grandfather Tim use a stick to fish a floating crate of bottled water out of the river, giving the group temporary relief. While introducing themselves to pass time, Mike notices ripples on the water's surface. Tim urges everyone to climb higher into the trees. During the scramble, Sally loses her footing and falls into the water. Realizing Sally cannot swim, Sistine dives in to save her. Huge waves form nearby. The group hauls Sistine and Sally back up, but the impact knocks Hannah into the water. Tim grabs a sharp wooden branch and dips into the water to help Hannah. He tells her to swim on his count of 3, but at 2, an immense force drags Tim underwater. The survivors look down in horror. In just minutes, 2 group members are killed and they finally see the monster, a massive, furious hippo. Night falls. At the office, Walker realizes Rodrigo's tour hasn't returned. He sets out on his boat but cannot pick up Rodrigo's GPS signal, forcing him to search manually along the route. Stranded in the dark, Rodrigo realizes the boat's GPS transponder must be turned off or submerged inside the underwater cabin. Mike remembers Walker's advice that hippos fear fire. He suggests pouring reserve boat fuel on the water surface and lighting it to create a protective firewall. Sistine takes the cabin keys and dives into the dark, submerged hull. Inside an air pocket, she briefly panics after seeing a floating corpse, but finds the GPS unit in a storage locker. Mike swims down to warn Sistine that the fuel fire on the surface is burning out. They surface, and Rodrigo pops out the wet battery, resets the transponder, and successfully reactivates the distress signal. Walker receives the transponder signal and rushes to their location. As Walker arrives, they lift the injured Rodrigo onto his boat. However, Diani demands massive financial compensation and angrily confronts Rodrigo. Mike steps in to stop the argument, but Dion shoves the boy into the water. Before Mike can climb back up, the hippo strikes from beneath, dragging young Mike away. Sally collapses in grief, having lost both her father and her son in one day. Walker recognizes the scale of the hippo. To escape its territory, they must disable or heavy charge it. Distracted by her grief, Sally walks numbly into the water, holding Mike's clothes. Walker raises a tranquilizer rifle. The hippo ignores Sally and flanks behind Walker, forcing him to drop his gun and fight off the beast with an oar. Rodrigo gathers his last remaining strength, grabs the fallen tranquilizer gun, and shoots the hippo. The hippo submerges while Walker swims to a nearby bank. Rodrigo dies on the boat deck from exhaustion and loss of blood. The tranquilizer dart fails to stop the hippo. It emerges on the bank near Walker. Walker quickly fires a heat flare into its path, using the intense heat to drive the beast back into the water. Walker jumps back onto the boat. Of the original tour, only Sistine and Dion remain alive alongside Walker. Sistine recovers her floating backpack, finding snack food and a camera with night vision capabilities. Walker picks a floating white water hyacinth flower and explains the background story. Over a century ago, during a meat shortage, the government approved a project to import African hippos to breed for food in these wetlands. The program was eventually abandoned, leaving invasive hippos breeding unchecked in secret. Using the night vision camera, Sistine spots an abandoned complex of old concrete buildings nearby. Walker suggests taking shelter there until dawn. The trio quietly land and enter the decaying structures, discovering it was the original 100-year-old hippo breeding facility. Bones lie scattered everywhere. In the back courtyard, they discover a small baby hippo pinned underneath a collapsed metal cage. The adult hippo suddenly charges the building. Having used his last tranquilizer, Walker plans to burn down the nest with old fuel barrels to create signal smoke for search crews. As the hippo approaches the front door, Dion panics, running into the main hall and locking the heavy door behind her, trapping Walker outside with the hippo. The hippo smashes through the entrance. Dion flees into a basement, falls, and breaks her leg. Sistine lures the hippo into a circle of spilled fuel and ignites it, trapping the mother hippo inside a ring of fire. As Sistine prepares to escape, she passes the trapped calf. Diano demands they keep running, abandons Sistine, but walks straight into a second adult hippo outside and is killed. Sistine realizes the hippo's hyper-aggression was driven entirely by maternal instinct to protect its trapped baby. Sistine carefully unlatches the rusted cage and frees the calf. Reunited with its baby, the mother hippo ignores Sistine and peacefully retreats into the swamp with her calf. The burning facility lights up the sky, attracting a search and rescue helicopter. Sistine climbs up a hill into the spotlight and is safely lifted to safety. And just that, I saved you 80 minutes instead of watching the whole movie. If you enjoy it and want to watch more, please drop a like, leave a comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.